This is Dan, and this is the Napkin Academy. And today's session, as we close out Show and Tell, we'll be talking about 6 simple steps to peak presentation performance. The simple idea for today's session is this: a presentation is a performance. Pow! We should treat it like one. And that's why today is the special World Cup celebratory Napkin Academy. I've been watching a lot of the World Cup these last couple of days. I hope you have. And there's some lessons there for presenters. The idea is this: if we're going to be giving a presentation, in other words, this is us over here, and we've got our idea. And what we want to do is share that idea with an audience in a way that is so compelling that they're going to enjoy that idea as much as we are. Doing that is a lot like doing this. It is a performance. Whenever we give a presentation, we are on stage and we have to perform. And you know what? Being in the game really matters. Having our head in the game and having our game on. That's why we went ahead and we planned and we prepared, and that's why we practiced, because now it all comes together and it is time for us to perform. And in order to do that, we have to be a performer, because this is different than this. And the time is going to come when we are going to be the center of attention. And we may not be in a stadium as big as this, but the idea is the same, because this is different than this. And we may not be in an auditorium, but it's still the same, because this, which may be a much more familiar room, is different than this. And whether we're going to be in that stadium, in that auditorium, or in that conference room, I want us always to be like this. Let's talk for a moment about something that rarely is discussed, what we're going to call the view from the front, because reality is when we are standing up in front of a group of people and we are the presenter, things shift. It's a different way of approaching the world. It's not actually very normal, and that's exactly why so many of us become a little bit stressed and nervous, and we're not going to be today, because we're going to find that there are 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 simple steps that we can take once we're on stage to go from a little bit worried to a little bit excellent to extraordinarily excellent as a performer. Those 6 simple steps are: number 1, we'll learn how to warm up the engine. Number 2, we'll learn how to sand out the bumps. Number 3, we'll talk about how we go slow to go fast. Number 4, we'll learn to find our own swing. Number 5, we'll learn to find a few friends in our audience. And number 6, we'll learn that every presentation is a chance to perform a little bit of magic. Lesson number 1, we're going to warm up the engine. Now let's think about this for a moment. Let's think about those soccer players, those football players, before they go out onto the pitch. Do they just come out of the shower cold and just run out there and immediately get on the field and start kicking the ball around and hoping to score? They do not. What's the first thing they do is they warm up. And we see this. We see those players get out there and they stretch like this. And then we see them do some stretches like this. Oh, yes. And then we see them do all kinds of warm-ups. And then what do? They start to kick the ball around together. And they jog and they start to move the ball back and forth. And they warm up. We are going to do the same thing, because if we're going to be presenting, we are a performer. And here's the way I think about it. On the day of our performance, our first audience is the shower. And this is something that I make a habit of my own. On the day I'm going to go up and give a presentation, I get into the shower, I turn on that warm water as it flows across me, I go ahead and I recite the first couple of lines of my presentation. I want to thank you all for coming today, and I actually aloud say the first couple of things that I'm going to say. I might even, in fact, in that shower, give the first 5 to 10 minutes of my entire presentation. Just what does it feel like in my mind? And then when I'm done, I dry off, of course, and I get suited up. I put on our costume. In my case, it's usually a suit and tie. And then I enter into the auditorium. and there are going to be a bunch of people in there, and this is the opportunity when we make small talk. This is exactly why small talk was invented. Small talk is the perfect way to make sure that we are continuing to warm up our own engine, which is really our voice and our attitude. And we want to make sure that we are engaged, and small talk is the perfect way to do that. Hey, how about the weather? Hey, how about the game the other night? What do you think about that? Where are you from? Wonderful way to keep warming up our voice. And then it's time for us to sit down in the audience and wait for our turn to present. And it's true, the waiting is truly the hardest part, because we may be anxious, we may be stressed, we may be excited, but we've got things that we want to share, and now we just have to wait. And actually, this is a good time for us to listen to all of the other people that are presenting, because guaranteed there's going to be an idea in something that the other people are saying that's going to help us talk about our own idea. So waiting, the best thing to do, talk when we can, and then listen as best as we can, because then it's going to be time for us to step up on stage. And one last thing before we do, in our mind, here's what I want us to do. Mouth closed. Mumble the words of our opening line. Say our opening line one more time in our mind, maybe even whisper it a little bit aloud, because we want to have that line ready to go the moment we get out on stage. And on a side note, step number 2, because that opening line is going to be so important, I like to think about things as sanding out the bumps. What do I mean? Well, listen, the first 2 minutes of our presentation is going to be the most important. It is our runway. If you think that our presentation is we're going to fly, this is where we take off. And we want to make sure that that runway is smooth and there are no bumps on it. And I quite literally mean I want us to have our opening line ready and make it smooth. The first 2 minutes are going to be the most important. So why don't we take and rehearse that first couple of minutes until we know that it is perfectly smooth. And if we find that there's a bump in it, if there is something that causes us to stumble in our first couple of minutes, we remove it. We sand it right out, because we want to make that first couple of moments as smooth as we can. And we don't ever, 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 never, ever say, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, I apologize. We never apologize. Why? Because we want to project enough confidence, we talked about this last time, so that our audience trusts us. And if the first thing we say is we're worried, what's going to happen is our audience isn't really going to trust us anymore. And guess what? They don't know that we're anxious. If we project the idea of being in control, they will believe the idea of being in control. And the moment we say, oh, I'm sorry because I'm worried, then we're starting to actually accelerate that. So what we do instead, because we know this, we will be worried. Instead, we start with our opening lines. We say, thank you very much for inviting me. And then I literally begin like this. I'd like to tell you a story about, and then I introduce whatever my subject's going to be. I'd like to tell you a story. Just saying that, you will find, relaxes us tremendously and gets our audience relaxed and trusting us as well. That's what I mean. Sand out the bumps in those first couple of minutes. Step number 3, once we're on stage, we want to actually go slow in order to move smoothly. And what I mean by that is, look, stage time is different. When we are on stage and we're presenting, it is not a normal state of affairs for us, and our normal sense of time is going to be way off. Things that we think are going very, very fast, our audience is going to think are going way, way, way too fast, and things that we think are too slow, our audience is still probably going to think is too fast. So what we really want to do is we want to recognize that in order to appear to be in real time when we're on stage, we actually need to slow things down. Once we start talking, always we want to slow it down. Look, no one's ever gone to sleep because someone was talking slowly. Someone goes to sleep because someone was boring. But if we slow it down, what we actually are going to find is we're going to say less. And the less that we say, the more it will be remembered and the more impact it will have. And along the way in going slow, we want to pace ourselves, and we always want to remember to breathe. As we're talking, pause. Take a moment to breathe. it'll slow things down. It'll slow us down, and it'll relax us. And it allows us then to modulate the pace at which we go through our presentation. Sometimes we want to go really, really fast, and sometimes we want to slow things down. Slow down to go fast. And step number 4. This one just takes time and practice. But what we really need to do is find our own natural swing. Imagine in golf. No one can tell you this is exactly the way that you need to hit the ball. We will all, only through trial and error finally find what for us is exactly the right swing for us to knock that ball. Some of us are very funny. We might think that humor is the best way to do our presentation, but some of us are not funny, and we may find that being serious is a far better way for us to be able to maintain our swing. And some of us may be very quick, and we may have a lot of things to say very, very quickly, and it's very funny, and it's very humorous, and it's all locked together. And some of us may be a little bit more quiet, and we may find that the best way to tell our story is a little bit quieter. And you know what? For all of us, this is something we just have to learn. And to find our own natural swing, the only way to do it is to try out a few different paces. And the only way to do that is to expose ourselves to practice through lots of different presentations. And we may find that in one presentation we say, in this one, I want to be funny, and I want to talk really, really fast and see how that works. It may be incredible. It may not work at all. And in another one, we might want to say, in this one, I'm going to slow it down, and I'm going to be a little bit more serious about things, and I'm going to see how that works. And that we may find is perfect for us or not. But the point is, we will ultimately find our own swing, and it will not be someone else's. It will be our own. We'll get there through time and practice. And once we're on stage and we are talking, we may become very anxious. We may find that it's a great time. But here's what we actually do. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking to 6 people or 16 people or 60 people or 600 people. All of us who present always share this same idea. You know what we do? We're up here. We look out at our audience. We get started. And as we talk, we don't actually talk to all of these people. What we find is we identify 3 or 4 friendly faces. It always happens. And what we do is we make a bit of a connection with just those people, and they connect back to us, and they become our real audience. So we find 3 or 4 faces, and what we'll find is as we look back and talk to each one of those 3 or 4 people 3 or 4 times, you know what's going to happen? They are going to start to smile back at us, and we are going to get energy back from them. And this is what I mean by this idea of check the energy. Remember what an extraordinary presentation is? It's a bond of trust between us and our audience. A great presentation, of course, is not just about us being really witty on stage, nor is it about just pandering to our audience and giving them what they want. No. An extraordinary presentation is a bond of trust that exists between us and our audience. It is a flow that goes both ways, and at any point where there's flow, there's going to be a level of energy. And we check that energy by looking back at those people who are our friends and see, are they still with us or are they drifting away? And our goal as an experienced, extraordinary presenter is we will find that we can actually manage that energy as we go through the presentation. And sometimes we up the energy a lot and we say a lot of things, and sometimes we slow it down and maybe we take a little bit of a pause. And then we pick it back up again and we show something new, and then maybe we slow it down. We are managing that energy, and we're monitoring how well we're doing that by maintaining eye contact back to our 3 or 4 friends who we've just met by giving that presentation. And the last of our simple steps is this one. Let's talk about performing a little bit of magic. Because you know what? As the presenter, we are the performer, and we have the magic hat in our hands. And what we want to do is pull out our magic tricks and have our audience be amazed as they learn from us. So how do we do that? We talked about this. We vary our pace. We absolutely keep things visual. We have lots of stuff to show and to tell, and we remove distractions. Now what I mean by that is we know that ideas and problems are by definition always going to be very complex, but we know that something very complex is not going to have a good connection with our audience. So what we do, this is where we tame confusion by having our storyline. Why did we spend so much time on identifying our storyline? Because it is the way that we remove all of the distractions so that we can focus on here is what we're really going to be sharing. And in order to perform that magic, we've crafted our excellent storyline. We hold on to that storyline, and if we find that we start to drift, we come back to our storyline. And if we find that our storyline is getting a little convoluted, we pull it back to that essential line that we already worked through. And this is how we begin to perform a little magic. And you know what? Here is a bit of a pop quiz. Something never talked about when we're giving presentations. Let's think for a moment. What is the single most important difference between the person on the stage and the people on the seats? I'll tell you this. If this is us, and this is all our audience, the biggest single most important difference between us and them, it is not the microphone, it is not the projector, it's not our confidence or our influence or our power, it's this. We already know what is going to happen. As the presenter, we are the only person in the room who knows what's going to happen because we are the one who wrote the presentation. We created the storyline, and we're the only one who know where we are along it. What does this tell us? As the presenter, we can see the future. For this one unique moment, when we are up on stage and we are talking to a group of people, we have true magic with us in our pocket. Because we know in advance what is going to happen, we have the ultimate means to guide our audience's attention. This is why we are performers. This is why I call us magicians. We are going to lead the eye of our audience and lead the mind of our audience to follow the story the way we want to tell it. And as long as we keep our audience's mind actively going along with us, we are in total control of the room. And this is why we had 3 rules of telling the truth. Telling it with a story, and telling that story with pictures, because these are the tools that we use to predict the future and bring everyone along with us. I know what is going to happen and you don't is a powerful tool to have with us, and it's a terrible thing to waste. One of the reasons why many presentations are not extraordinary is because the presenter fails to realize the power that we have in our hand of guiding the storyline for our audience. We slow things down. We speed things up. We create suspense. We show pictures when we think appropriate. We draw things when we know that's going to be the most dynamic. We ask our audience to participate with us in the moments that we have already thought through. This is the power of our Puma storyline. You remember we created the Puma? Here's why. Because it is that backbone of our story that allows us to pounce our idea onto our audience in a way that they are going to find captivating. Lead with the eye, and the mind will follow. Vision really is the greatest magic of all. And as the presenter on stage, as we talk about things, if we show them with pictures, and even more importantly, if we draw those pictures live, we will be able to captivate and lead the mind of our audience for as long as our presentation goes. And that's the real magic. One last tip, especially for presentations that are longer than about 20 minutes. You know, visuals, going ahead and creating our pictures and leading our audience's mind, as long as we keep leading the mind with the eye, we can keep people's attention for a very long time. But it is always worth noting that attention really does seem to go in about 20-minute clumps. So every 20 minutes or so, we want to vary how we are doing our little magic show up here. And one of the best ways to do that, going back to our analogy of performance and games, is from time to time, we actually want to give our audience the ball. And here's what I mean by that. I make a point of every time I'm giving a presentation, before I start, I give everyone in the audience a sheet of paper and a pen. And about 20 minutes in, I ask everyone who's in the audience to go ahead and pick up that pen and put it on the paper and draw with me. And the audience, of course, says, well, I can't draw, but that's why I do it. I say draw with me. So what I do is I draw a picture on the screen like I'm doing now, very simple, and I ask the people to draw it step by step along with me. And before long, they are smiling. And here's the magic. What I've done is I've given the people in the audience something to do. I've given them the ball for a little while, and then they're going to hand it back to me. About every 20 minutes, you want to make sure that we're giving our audience something to do. And for me, nothing is better than asking them to draw along with me. And the reason we spend all this time on these 6 simple steps for how to give peak presentation performance is because as we ourselves are getting ready to step in front of our audience and get ready for this, let's always remember to be a little bit like Neymar. Let's be a real pro at what we do, and let's be prepared and know that we love what we're doing it for ourselves, and we're doing it for our audience. And that's what I mean by performing when we present. If we tell the truth, we tell it with a story, and we tell that story with pictures, it's going to be an unbelievable performance. And we will love it, and our audience will love it along with us. Homework, really quickly. I want us to work on our best presentation. So what I'd like you to do is recall the best, most fun, most enjoyable, or enlightening presentation you've seen, or even better, that you yourself have created and delivered. And then I'd like us to draw a little timeline illustrating exactly what happened. Oh, here I was, and here was my audience, and here's the idea I shared with them, and here's what I did, and here was the result. Or there I was in the audience, and the presenter got up and did this amazing thing, and it was awesome. Draw a little timeline, provide a brief narrative caption, put the whole thing into a little PowerPoint or into a series of drawings, and post it. Hey, thank you all for another great lesson. This is Dan signing off from the Napkin Academy, but don't go away. Now on our new platform, you can still submit your homework. Debbie, our community manager, is going to join you right now to show you exactly how to do that, and I really encourage you, do your homework. Okay, take it away, Debbie. See you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this Napkin Academy classic video. We've made it easier than ever to share your homework. After you've completed your homework and have a JPEG or PNG file saved on your computer, come back to this course. Once you're back here, scroll to the bottom of the screen, and in the comments box, you can add a comment. I'm just going to call this one My Homework. You can also add images by clicking on the Insert Edit Image button here. In the source box, click on the file. In the Images window, click on Upload, and then click on Add Files. This is going to take you to your computer where you can search for your images. I'm just going to search for mine in Pictures, and I'm going to choose this image here. You can also add multiple images here. Click Upload. After the upload is complete, click Close. Then scroll down, and you'll see that the last image is here, and it's checked. This is the one we just uploaded. Click Insert. I suggest in the Dimensions box you change the maximum to 1200 pixels and leave the Constrained Proportions box checked. You can also add an image description here if you'd like. Click OK. You'll see that your image has been added to your comment. And now the last step, the most important one, make sure that you click the green comment button here to upload your homework to the Napkin Academy. We hope to see your homework soon.